Hello there, folks. Welcome to game night. Today I just wanted to do kind of a low-key, chatty video, but still about board games. Let's see if I can convince Buddy to stay, huh? I have these decoy headphones. He loves to play with headphones, but of course, it's probably not a good idea for him to play with plugged-in headphones. So we had these really cheapy ones. So these are Buddy's designated toy headphones. I don't know what it is about headphones. He just loves them. So he likes headphones and he likes measuring tape. Kind that you use for making clothes. And then occasionally he'll play with an actual string toy. Yeah, you're so good, aren't you? You good boy. Say hello to the people. So, the topic for today is going to be what would I do if I lost all of my board games? If I had to restart my collection, what games would I grab first to have a good variety, a good balance of easy games, difficult games, different styles of games. So yeah, I just thought it'd be a fun chatty thing, theoretical question, and I would love to hear if you also had to restart your board game collection. What game would you definitely start with? And for fun ASMR sounds, I'm going to be tapping on a few of these board games as we go, and then I'll also put them up on the screen here. So I've kind of structured these into different game categories and then picked one game in each of those categories, and I tried to keep most of the games at a lower price, because if you are buying a whole collection of board games at once, you probably don't want them to all be like $60 games. So the first category of game that I would definitely need to have in my collection is kind of bluffing games. There's a lot of these style games. I feel like the first one I ever played was Mafia, which was not even a physical game. We would just play it in our backyard on a camping night. And then since then, there's so many different varieties of that bluffing style game. So there's Bang, Shadowhunters, all different types of bluffing games that are like this. So, you know, the usual format is you're in a group. Most of you are the good guys, but there might be one or two bad guys, and you're trying to suss out who is who to win the game. So if I were starting from scratch, I would just go with Resistance. I think Resistance is kind of the most classic version of this game, maybe besides Mafia, because that one's like decades old. But Resistance is kind of like the bare bones, purest form of this bluffing style game. And it's also really tiny and only costs like $10 or so. So I would start out with at least Resistance in my collection. The next category of game is wordy type games. So Scrabble or Just One or all types of wordy games out there. I just saw one called Illiterati. But the one that I chose for this category is Anamia. So we got a Namia a while back, some years back, and I can't remember who, but someone bought the like full version with all of the expansions. So you can buy the little packs, or you can buy like a whole box this size that's filled to the brim with hundreds of different cards. I really love Anamia because I love games where you're like so wrapped up in it. You're just like laser focused, like yelling. I like games where they take up all your brain space, you know? You can't be thinking about anything else except for Anamia when you're playing Anamia. So the way that it works is it's kind of like a word association game. So, for example, it'll have like a category on a card that you flip. So let's say like a European city or a type of plant. And if the symbols on the board match at that time, then you have to say a type of plant before anyone else. And so you have to be hyper focused to see if any matching symbols come up, and then you have to be like ready on the go to blurt out whatever word first comes to mind in that category. And my favorite moment from Anamia thus far is, you know, in these moments where you're like holding a bunch of different words in your head and things are moving so fast, sometimes your mind goes blank. And someone flipped a card that was flightless birds, and for the life of me, I could not remember the word penguin. And so I just stared in the distance for like 2 seconds and shouted out pig, which is definitely flightless, about halfway there. But it's just a lovely, lighthearted, fun game. And the other thing I like about it is you don't have to remember how to spell things. So that would be my wordy game. Oh, and Anamia, depending on if you get the tiny one or the giant one, it's not too expensive. I'm guessing like 15 to 30. I'll double check those prices though. The next category that I chose is like a creative type game. So for this, I'm thinking like a Dixit or Hues and Cues, or something that's artsy and creative, you know, subjective kind of rules. Pictionary, for example. So the one that I've chosen for this is actually a free game. I've been playing this since I was a child, but they do have a boxed version of it now called Telestrations. But I say it's free because the version that we played as kids is we would just like rip up pieces of paper, or you could use like little sticky notes, and just make a pile of sticky notes. And then how you play the game is you'll write a prompt. Could be super short, like snowman on a rainy day, or it could be like a whole scene if you want things to go wild. So you'll write out a prompt, and then you pass it to the person on the left, and they have to draw out that prompt. Then they'll pass it to the person on the left, and they'll have to write out based on the drawing, so they can't see the original prompt. And then you go back and forth, writing what you see, drawing what's written, writing what you see, drawing what's written, until you have something completely different. So essentially the game is Pictionary, but in the style of telephone. So from the start to the finish, you'll usually get like a completely different description. Always funny, always a good time. and it's pretty much free. You just need paper and pens. Although, if you would like to have a preset version, you can get Telestrations. But personally, I feel like the prompts in Telestrations are a little ho-hum. Like, it'll be like soup or a cup of coffee. And so Telestrations usually doesn't get so wild and funny because it's a little more straightforward. So I actually prefer the free version. The next category that I've chosen is a competitive strategy game. So depending on the group for board game night, sometimes you're looking for lighthearted things like Anamia or Telestrations, and sometimes you're looking for deep strategy to sink your teeth into. So I have a couple of strategy categories. So for competitive strategy, I've chosen Seasons. If you haven't played Seasons, it is a lovely game, and the best part is they have it for free on Board Game Arena, which is like an online like tabletop simulator, but it's actually pretty well built out in Board Game Arena. It's not super clunky. If you're restarting your collection, or if you just want to try it and don't want to buy it because it is kind of expensive, you can first test it out, see if you like it online, and then go from there. Also, if you're this far in the video, I would love a little like or subscribe, comment, whatever makes you happy. I recently had a video, my rainbow squirrel video, which was like flatlining on YouTube. YouTube was like, I'll just pass on this video. And then a whole bunch of people liked and commented, and YouTube decided, hey, maybe I'll actually recommend this video to people. And you can see the graph was like flatline and then spiked again. So it really does make a difference for YouTubers to have that engagement. So yeah, whatever you feel is genuine, like or comment, I would appreciate it. So if you haven't played Seasons before, the premise of the game is it's like Olympics of wizards. So there's like seasonal. Honestly, the plot of the game is kind of confusing. I think it's just, you gotta absorb it as a vibe. So you're like different wizards, and there's competitive wizardry tournaments during different seasons, and then as a wizard you're trying to get the most points, the most crystals to win the game. The reason that I love Seasons so much is, one, it is a pretty complex game. There's a bunch of different routes you can take to win the game, a lot of different strategies, and there's so many different cards, especially I think there's one expansion with extra cards, so there's so many different cards. You could play a different strategy like 50 times and still find something new, and so it has like a high level of complexity that keeps it like really interesting, but it's not so complex that it's difficult to play, because they put all of the like complex instructions on each of the cards, and so even though there is a lot of complexity, it's not something you have to like memorize or have to learn all at once. You can just read whichever cards you get and play based off of those. And so I think it's a really good balance of a good level of complex strategy, but not so confusing that no one's going to want to sit down and learn the game. Also, it has really cute, lovely artwork, which is a great bonus. And yeah, Seasons is one of those games that me and my family just went crazy over. I got it as a birthday present when I was like in college. and the game is so beat up. We did end up sleeving the cards because they were getting like worn in. But before we sleeved them, there was one time in college that one of my friends kicked over a beer can and got all of the cards wet, and we had to put them all out on the carpet and cover them with towels and then put books on top and then just like hope for the best. And they actually turned out fine. Like, I think they smelled like beer for like maybe a year or so, but the cards weren't too like wrinkly. They weren't like destroyed from that, so it was a good save. But the game has really been through a lot. Me and my brothers would constantly play it when I was like home from college breaks and things like that. And actually, I haven't played it in a while. I think we like played it so much for 3 years that recently we haven't taken it out that much. So note to self, I'm gonna need to play Seasons. So yeah, Seasons is $45, which is a little bit more on the pricey end, but you can play it for free on BGA. I don't know why this sounds like a sponsored content. It's not. I'm way too small for that, but just if you want to try it out, it is there. The next category that I've picked out is a co-op strategy game. So Seasons was competitive strategy, and this one is cooperative strategy. It's a category of game that I just really enjoy. And I know that some people don't really like cooperative games, but for my collection, I definitely need at least one. And so the one that I've chosen is Spirit Island, which I had a instruction video on. It's a very long video, so perfect for falling asleep. Learning a board game while you fall asleep. So I won't go too much into Spirit Island because there's a whole video on it, but Spirit Island is cooperative. The concept of the game is each of the players are spirits on an island, and there are invaders coming into the island and destroying the land. And so all of you spirits are working together to scare the invaders off of your island. Spirit Island, I would say the main hurdle is you do kind of have to learn a good amount of rules before you jump in, as evidenced by the fact that my Spirit Island video is an hour long. And then the other thing about Spirit Island, which some people love, some people hate, is there's a lot of sitting down in deep thought, analyzing your possible strategies. So you gotta make sure that the crew you have are down for some heavy strategizing, some furrowed brows. But I really love Spirit Island. It also has really good artwork. And it's a very unique style of game, and most important for starting a brand new board game collection, it's another game that has a whole bunch of variety, so you won't get bored of the game quickly. So there's different spirits you can play, of course. There's also different maps you can use. There's different opponents, so you can choose the type of invaders and what abilities they have. And then they also have different scenarios. There's so much variety that you can slowly sprinkle into Spirit Island. I think you'd have a hard time getting bored of it too quickly. The other main downside of Spirit Island is it's the most pricey one. Spirit Island is $90. I actually kind of forgot that. That's hefty. But in my opinion, it's worth it. You'll get a lot of playtime out of it, or at least I do. And so, you know, price per hour, I think, works out in my favor. The next category that I have is Best Art, and I've chosen Ocean's Evolution. I know a lot of people would have said Wingspan, and I like Wingspan, but if I'm restarting my collection, I don't know that it's gonna make the first pass. If you feel differently, let me know in the comments. I'd be glad to hash it out. I mean, the best thing about Wingspan is the tiny, cute rainbow pastel eggs. I'm just kidding, but they are cute. They look delicious. Yeah, Wingspan is so beautiful. I love animals as art, and I think they did a really good job with all of the birds. But Ocean, I feel like, is animal art extreme because it's like undersea fish and also like fantasy fish. Like there's not enough real fish on the Ocean's cards. They kind of just made up weird fish. And also, if you get the like deep sea expansion or whatever it's called, they have like iridescent, like really nice luxury feeling cards. And it's also just so like pastel and rainbowy. It just makes me happy inside. So yeah, I've chosen Ocean as a beautiful game, but it is actually a really fun game too. It's not just pretty. The concept of the game is along the same lines of Evolution, if you've played that. Kind of a similar game to Dominant Species in concept. I have a cat hair in my eye. Essentially, the game is you are evolving your own species of fish and underwater creatures, and you'll give them different evolutionary traits. So it could be camouflage, like a cuttlefish. It could be hunting abilities. It could be spikes. You give them different evolutionary traits, and then you win if your species are the most evolutionarily successful. So Oceans is $45. That one is kind of more expensive, but I think the quality is worth it. The next one that I'm going to talk about is Taboo, which I've been tapping, and I have this for the category of large party game. I mean, Taboo is a classic. You can tell by this box that it's very old. I think this is from the 80s or 90s. It's been around for a long time for a reason. It's super fast to pick up, super fun, like party game. I feel like it works pretty well for a more serious gaming group or completely non-gamers as well. And the best part, the most versatile part about Taboo is you can pretty much play with however many players you want. I don't think they actually have a limit in the instructions for it. You can have a group of 30 people playing Taboo if you want to, or you can have a group of 4 people playing Taboo. So that's perfect for a party, you know, if there's people trickling in or if people are leaving early. It's not really that big of a deal. You can adjust the numbers and keep on playing. Taboo is like $15. Like I said, it's been around forever. You could probably like pick it up from a thrift shop if you find it. So yeah, pretty cheap. So yeah, if you haven't played Taboo before. Essentially what it is you are describing a word. So this one is accordion, but you can't say any of the taboo words below it. So I would have to describe accordion without saying instrument, polka, squeeze box, musical, concertina. So maybe you'd say something like an old tiny sound maker that folds up like a fan and has a tiny piano on the side. Something like that. So that's pretty much the game of Taboo. Has a whole bunch of cards that are two-sided, so I haven't found that I run out of words too quickly unless you're like playing Taboo every single week or something. So yeah, Taboo is my recommended large party game if you are restarting your collection. The next category that I have is a two-player game. I like to have at least one two-player game so that me and my husband can play, or, you know, if you just have a friend over, you want a low-key game. It's always great to have at least one two-player game on hand. So for this category, I've chosen Trois. This isn't Trois, that's just cards I'm tapping on. Trois is a like historical themed game where you are running the church, military, and the commoners in France in like the 1600s. One of the things that I love about it is it's sort of like a dice drafting kind of game. There's something about a game where you roll 10 dice at a time that just makes me happy. I don't know. It just makes me happy to be rolling like a dozen dice. So that makes it really fun. I just think it's a unique game. It's a good amount of strategy, but not too much. And it's also versatile in the same way as Seasons and Spirit Island, because it has a lot of variety in the cards, and so each game you play is different. So in Trois, you have different ability cards, and each game you'll only have 9 that are available. And you're choosing those 9 from a whole deck of cards. And so every game that you play is a little bit different. So that keeps it lively, and you can get a lot of play out of this one game. Trois is $60. That is also kind of pricey. Also, this deck of cards is so fresh. It's very satisfying. It's like a fresh $100 bill, you know? A fresh card. So, cards, I would be remiss if I didn't choose for one of the categories in this video, because they're extremely cheap. You can buy them at a gas station, and you can pretty much play infinite games with it. You could play spades, you could play Egyptian rat screw / sandwich, whatever you prefer to call it. You could play BS. I haven't played that in years. I wonder if it's still fun. You could play solitaire. You could play variations on solitaire. You could play so many games. You could play Resistance using a deck of cards. I didn't say it, but you could. And yeah, it's just the most versatile. If you're like trying to play games right now and you only have $5, you could play 20 different games on a deck of cards. You could be set for like a month. So just wanted to mention that because that's like, it's a staple, you know? The next category I have is an easy learn game. So this is Machi Koro. I also had a video of the Machi Koro instructions if you want to watch that. Machi Koro hits with nearly any group. It hits with gamers, it hits with newbies, like truly anyone. I played this game with my friend and her dad. He loved it. He was very competitive. He's not like a board game or anything, but it just goes to show like anyone can jump into Machi Koro. So this game is pretty easy to learn for a similar reason to Seasons, which is that the most complex instructions are all written on the cards that you'll be buying. You don't have to memorize them, you can just read the cards. And the actions on the cards aren't too complex. They're way less complex than Seasons. The complexity comes with the strategy and the combination of the cards, and also comes a little bit with the randomization of the cards if you choose to play the randomized way. So if you haven't played Machi Koro, it's a very cute game where you're all mayors of little towns scattered about, and your goal for the game is to make the best city and beat out the other mayors around you. As you can tell, it's freaking adorable. So I have the Harbor and Millionaire's Row expansion. If you want a super simple game, you can just buy the base game. It costs $30. If you do want to play it with more experienced board gamers, then I would recommend the expansions, which are $20 extra for all of them. The last thing that I want to mention in this video is just to use game supplies in different ways. If you have a couple games on hand and you want to switch up the rules or play a completely different game, use the, dice, cards, supplies that you have and play whatever game you want. So that could be taking an existing game and throwing in weird house rules, or it could be just playing a completely different game that you've made up. One example of this that I thought was really cool is one of the board game cafes that I've been to. It's called Tabletop in Cleveland. I went to one of their mixer nights, and one of the games that they had out to play was code names using Dixit or Mysterium cards. And so I'll put up some here. I also have videos on Mysterium, but if you've never seen them, those cards are like surrealist paintings on a card. They're just really beautiful and creative. And then Codenames is kind of like a word association game. And so they had made their own combo game where they were using the rules of Codenames, but they were using the cards of Dixit. So that's just like one way you can play any game you want with the cards, with the supplies that you already have. Another one that me and my friends did, which was unreasonably fun, was we had this game from our childhood called Who Knew? It's like a cranium game, if you remember those. Those feel so nostalgic for me. But it's a cranium game that kind of has like apples to apples type cards, where it'll be like snowman or the Weather Channel or tornado. I don't know, anything. And we used those cards and then just like went wild. So we would ask like a completely random question and then use the cards where everyone would put in one card, snowman, skyscraper, etc., to answer the question, and then you would choose from those cards, and whoever had the best card wins that round. So kind of like Cards Against Humanity style, but we would just make up our own weird questions, like what would be the coolest shaped shoe, like a snowman, plant shaped shoe, just like dumb stuff. Or it'd be like, what's your least favorite thing. Could do like what would look cutest in a top hat. What is closest to the shape of Tennessee? Just whatever you want. The dumber the better usually. And so we played that for hours. It was very fun. So those are just some examples. Go wild with whatever game you have, you know. Obviously it's fun to play games to the T, following the rules precisely to really learn the game, but you can also just take it in whatever direction you want to. At the end of the day, games are meant to be fun, bond people together, enjoy their time together, so make some weird games, you know? Also, if you are building up your collection from scratch, a great way to do that, to explore games, is to, one, go to a board game cafe if you have one near you. That way you can kind of sample games, you know, pay $5 and play however many games you want. So that's a great way to get into gaming if you don't have a whole big library yourself. And then the other way is share with friends. I would say like 2/3 of the game that I'm like, oh yeah, I have those, I play those all the time, I don't actually have. So for example, Seasons, I got it for my birthday, but then I like gave it to my friend. They've had it for a couple years, probably get it back from them, trade for another game. You know, you can just share games, and most of the time with game nights you're playing together anyway. So, you know, if you have 4 different friends with little board game libraries, that means you altogether have a big board game library, which maybe sounds cheesy, but I'm cheesy, you know? I'm here for the friendship, so share board games. So those are all of the games that I would start with if I had to restart my board game collection. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you again